Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Living in the Limelight, an Anton Scholl and Friends podcast where we discuss music from the artist and fan perspective. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to Living in the Limelight, the podcast where we get together with local musicians and also sometimes with fans to kind of get perspectives on how people listen and look at music. Today, very special guest, we have Mark Greenawalt, all around everything. We're going to talk a lot about that. Musician, artist, photographer, just everything. It amazes me what you do, so we're going to get together, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to get to people who don't know who you are already, get to know you, because you do some amazing things. So, not just saying that because you're on a show. I've known you for a while, and here we go. Okay, so everything that you have done so far, when I met you, I believe you were just, I knew you as a keyboard player. I believe, that's probably what it was. Keyboard player, phenomenal musician. All of a sudden, I start learning about you writing these songs, and then you producing, writing, doing the lyrics, and then on top of that, playing every single instrument on the song itself. So, how did that come about? Because most people, of course, let's get musicians together, let's get all this group together, let's write songs, and let's record. How did it come to mind with you to everything, to become your own prince? That's
I love that.
That could be, yeah.
Love that. I guess it goes way back to I want to say high school, even when I first got a Tascam Porta Studio 246, I think it was called. So
cassette.
It was cassette.
Yes.
And I realized that as you write something, you could record it to one track, and then you, the same person, can play along with yourself, by recording onto the second track and so forth. So that's one of the first opportunities that I had the insight of what it could take to produce this. And luckily, I had a bunch of friends that played. So I had a guitarist, Rob Richardson's a guitarist I know from way back in the day that he would play some of the guitar parts. And I would say back then it was a drum machine we had, and it was a sad sounding drum machine, by today's standards. But nevertheless, I'd have some drum machine go through. And then I bought one that you could actually play the little pads on it. Mm-hmm. So that was me playing drums, on some of these songs. Mm-hmm. And maybe it would just be the basic beats going through there, but I'd play the little fills and throw a crash in every now and then.
Right.
It started off mostly just keyboard based, but I was writing songs in high school. And matter of fact, I think I put out like a little 10-song cassette for friends and family, of songs by the time. Maybe I was like first year of college at that point, but listening back, not very good.
Wow. Now that's 4-track?
That's 4-track.
So that was 4-track that happened.
But I learned to bounce pretty early too, where I'd get 3 tracks and I'd mix them and dump that down to number 4, and now I got 3 new tracks to play with, and I'd mix and dump, and so I was having, maybe up to 16 tracks on some stuff even way back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was, which is an amazing thing, because when you start going into the time it takes, and I don't know if a lot of people realize when you are overdubbing or tracking instruments, what is the first instrument you would start? Would it be drums you would always start with? Get the beat down first?
Interesting question. The truth of the matter is, and I'm going to jump forward to today to a little bit more how I do it now. Yeah. Because it really, the drums and bass are just the root of everything. And every time I try to do something else first and put that in, it really negates everything I've done. Yeah. In other words, however, I will say this. In general, I like to get the structure of the song done so that I can play drums all the way through. So what that means a lot of times is if it's a guitar song, or let's say it's a keyboard song, I'll play all the keyboard parts, and I might do it in sections. Here's a verse, or here's the intro, here's the verse, And I might copy and paste that over. And then I'm like, well, I think I want another section there, so I might paste something in. So I get the infrastructure, but I know that it's all rough. I know I'm going to go back. And then once I got it the whole way through, then and sometimes I'm singing through that because I got to know where I'm at in the song too. I'll lay down a rough vocal track. But I almost know that all that's throwaway because then I want to play the drums. And drums are obviously first because the bass can't, I don't know where,
Right.
So drums end up being the first real track, then bass, and then everything else is usually re-recorded. Occasionally I'm like, I played to a click track, so it's there. And then a lot of it kind of comes down to how far am I taking this? There's from a songwriting standpoint, I'm in a group right now called the 2 Week Tune Geeks, and we write a song every 2 weeks. And what it is like there's it fluctuates between 6 and 10 or so people in the group, and we all throw out a phrase, and then they randomly pick one of those phrases, and you have to take that phrase and write a song to it. And you have 2 weeks, and what you turn in can be a fully produced song that's ready for Spotify if you got the time. Or what happens quite often is it's due that Monday night, and you're sitting there with acoustic reading off the sheet and just trying to get something done. So I guess the one thing I'll say too is sometimes I'm just trying to get through the song, get it done to a point where I can post it, to say I got through this. And keep in mind, this group we just post to ourselves. It's like it's not necessarily posted to the world. But many of those songs have become, songs that I've gone back then and spent another, 20 hours, playing all the instruments and doing the overdubs and doing the full production and getting it out on Spotify. Some of them, I got through it and next,
Well, and I would think something like that would be really interesting. But more so, I would love to see different people come up with different melodies. Because, like, if the music was already done, like, if you take any song out there, it's the music and the melody that make the song. So now, for example, if you just took the music to a song that's already done, the music's all done, and you take 4 different people or 5 different people and tell them, now you put in the lyrics and the melody, you'll come up with 5 totally different things.
Sure.
And that to me would be interesting, because really I think that a lot of people don't focus on that the lyrics are playing a huge part of it with the melody. That most people remember songs by melody, not really by music. When you're humming a chorus or when you're, it's usually the music or the lyrics that you're humming and the melody of the song. So I would like to even put out a challenge and do something like that one day, just to kind of come up with how that sounds. Now, when you're thinking about the instruments that you do, the one thing that always kind of impressed me about you is that, you would be like, I think a violin would sound really good here. I'm going to go buy a violin and I'm going to just do it. And that, because drums, something that I really can't grasp, and keyboards, the 2 things that I just cannot grasp as a musician. I always have to have other people play that. How does that come about, and what is your learning process in learning these other instruments?
That's been such a fun trip for me is to learn different instruments. So I want to go back and say that I did take so keyboard was my first instrument that I really played. As a little kid, I had a little organ that was about yay big that played "Joy to the World," da 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 da. It's all white notes, and I had crayons writing the notes on there. How I knew what they were to even write that, I don't know. But so keyboard's the first thing I learned. And the beauty of that is kind of that is the basis of the notes that translate to all these other instruments. Okay, I did take a music theory course in high school. I can't say that I learned a lot, but I guess it did soak in. But more so, I feel like really the way music theory was taught to me was I played in cover bands for years and years and years, and just all these songs that I played throughout the top 40, the rock, whatever. you're like, oh, wait a second, this song's it's got G, C, and D in it also, and why is that? And you start learning this 1, 4, 5 progression, and I gotta say, it's even there's quite a few things. I think one of the funny things for me too was like I learned in soloing, I learned like this pentatonic scale, but there's sometimes that just didn't work with a song. It's like I know I'm in that key, but there's something. I'm playing the right notes, but it's not sounding as good as someone else. And I feel like it's actually been, I want to say even fairly recently, that I learned these modes, and that's where you're playing like all the white notes. For example, in the key of C, you start on C, but if you start on D, it's now a minor scale, but it's still all the white notes, all the same notes, and it just sounds more. And I was like, wow, that's. When you play those notes with certain songs, it sounds perfect. Yeah. And you get into these Dorian scale and Phrygian and Aeolian or whatever. So that was a big learning curve for me. Yeah. So I want to say now, once I kind of learned some of these scales and understand. I don't read music, by the way. In the theory class, I learned enough to be able to pick out what the notes are, but I don't sight read or anything. But understanding what you're playing became very interesting to me. And one example that I got a kick out of was on a guitar. The next string is a 4th up. On violin, it's a 5th up. Well, 4th and a 5th make up the scale. So ironically, a violin's upside down. Yeah. I've heard that, yeah. And a mandolin is like a violin. So it's kind of like once you learn a couple instruments, it starts, the whole mesh of it starts coming together.
Well, speaking of the violin, though, they now have new violins. Like I'm sure when you started out, you played the standard violin,
yes. Right? Yeah.
So they now have these new violins out that are electric violins where people are playing guitar solos and stuff on the violins. Do you know? Yeah. Have you seen those? Do you know anything about those? Because do they have more strings? Are they tuned differently? Is it something you've ever been into right now? Is trying to figure that piece out? Because that seems to be a lot more complicated than your standard violin, especially being backwards and all that.
Well, the couple things that I would mention to what you said. So first of all, keep in mind, violin is my lower instrument right now of my skill level, for sure. And it's just something that's kind of new to me. I bought first one about 2 years ago. And I bought one it's got an electric pickup in it, but it's an acoustic one.
Standard violin, yeah.
And then I want to say, just in November, I just bought my first electric violin. So you can't hardly hear it at all when you're playing it, without anything plugged in. And then it's got a battery in it. You turn it on and plug a pickup into it, and it sounds... I like it a lot. It's very interesting. And I can't remember her name. Brody's with the band.
It would be Nina G.
There you go.
Yes, I was going to bring her up and tell you about it. So Nina, shout out to you.
Yeah.
And Brody, of course. But
and she just posted the other day the Frampton one, and she's playing through a talk box and everything. Yeah. So that violin I know nothing about, but it looks like it has frets on it. Which most violins are fretless. Yeah. So that's one thing that's. Not good for me because I'm having trouble. Like I play something, I'm getting close to the intonation, and I listen to the playback and it's flat or it's sharp or whatever. So the frets would help me out, ironically. But that thing had maybe 6 strings on it too, so it went all the way around. Most violins are 4. There's some 5-string violins that adds one more low note to it that kind of makes it more like a viola. So. All this stuff, keep in mind, I'm no violin expert. It's just one of the other instruments that I'm like, being a keyboard player, and I use Logic, and Logic comes with, actually I bought this, I have one plugin that I have that's the BBC orchestra set it's a very, very cost-effective little starter kit to getting into some sounds. But the violin sound on there is phenomenal, and it's so easy for me to play that on keyboard, but I just love real instruments. So I'll play it on there to get the basis of it, and then I'll try to play along. And if I get to a point where I think it's acceptable, or just gives it that live real instrument feel, it's worthwhile to me.
So what were the sounds that you thought about? So the instrument-wise, you had violin. You talked about before you added like trumpet, saxophone. I mean, what are some of the instruments that you came up with where you were like, I have to learn that and put that in?
It feels endless at this point. My wife will tell you, for God's sake, why are you buying an accordion whenever you didn't learn to play the saxophone you got last Christmas or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, accordion is like, well, hey, that's just a keyboard, so I already know how to play it. I just got to learn this part of it. But then there's all these buttons over on this side that are chords. Right. So I bought an accordion. Harmonica's been a fun one, just because it's just so bluesy, so soulful. So many things you can do with that. Keep in mind my genre is in the rock, blues, pop arena. I love a little bit of country. I love the sound of jazz, but I've never really been a jazz person. Mm-hmm. But all these instruments have places, so I've really gravitated towards the ones that really work with rock and roll. And sax has been one that I've probably spent the most time with, and I feel like I've gotten somewhat proficient at sax now. Harmonica is one that you can just carry with you, always stuff it in your pocket, and you can carry that around. So,
you have to carry different keys, though, right? You have to carry different harmonica keys.
Although I just bought a chromatic harmonica.
Oh, okay.
And I've only used that now on 2 songs, but with that, it's got all the notes, so you can, and that's what Stevie Wonder plays on all those.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's big.
Yeah, it's big.
It's a great big thing like this, but you have a button, like it's got almost like the chromatic C scale. And then you hit a little button, and it takes it up a half step each note.
Oh, I didn't know about that. No.
Yeah, so that's been a fun one. And once again, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't bought it and watched a couple YouTube videos of how do you make this thing work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what about percussive instruments then? Playing the drums, because you don't use the drum machine anymore, right? Do you
No.
physically play the drums?
Yeah.
So you physically play. What other percussion instruments have you added or thrown into some of your songs?
A mutual friend of ours, I borrowed his djembe, if I'm saying it right.
Djembe, yeah.
Djembe, because I had a song I just really wanted that sound, and I played it and mic'd it a couple different ways because but right now I'm playing electronic kit, because that is the one instrument that the live acoustic drum set. I got a very loving wife that's allowing me to get whatever instrument I want and everything, but she said, we're going to draw the line at drums. You're not playing drums in the house,
A little noisy, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a grand piano at the house, which is phenomenal, but so that's too loud usually too. But anyhow, I have an electronic kit, and there's a software program called Superior Drummer that's just got phenomenal sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing a Roland V drum kit into this, and if you don't like the way the drums sound, just change it. And it's there's just some killer sounds on there. Sometimes I start a song with a loop, that I get usually still out of the drummer.
Yeah.
And there's a few things I program just to do stuff that I can't play. And then now and then, I got of the songs that I have on Spotify, I want to say 10-15% of them, I get a real drummer. That's just, trumps my skill. Yeah. I'm not all about, it has to be me. It's just that I'm the convenient person that's cheapest and always available.
Always available, right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I wanted to talk about the songs themselves, because you just released another song, Come Inside. So tell me about that song, because I love the video, obviously, because I'm from Chicago. It was in Chicago by the Bean, I love that area. And I just wanted to, how did that come about? And when you were writing that song, how is it that song came to you, meaning music first, lyrics first, just tell us how you put a song together, especially this particular song.
Okay. So this song was part of my 2-week Tune Geek exercise. So I had to write a song, and the phrase that week was "got you covered." And so when you have that phrase, that is your starting point, okay? and you can steer that all different directions. It can be the main theme of a song, or it can be shoehorned in at the end. It doesn't matter. And in this case, there were so many things that came to mind that were obvious, but there's just one line in the song is "He got you covered in sorrow," and I just thought that was kind of an interesting way of throwing that in. And the song, there's the sexual double entendre with "come inside," so I liked that, but I think that was completely downplayed, and it's not even a part of the song. But ironically, it's what a few people commented on. I see what you did there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because then you throw in your mind.
Yeah, your mind. Yeah. And so it kind of became this, and I want to say that it was written on piano, although it became a total guitar song. But the chords that I was playing, I just love. There's a Styx song. It is. Not Renegade, but Blue Collar Man.
Blue Collar Man.
Like the verses to that have this like D minor to G minor 7, and it's just such an interesting, it's going to the 4 chord and making it a minor 7, and I just love that sound, and so that's the first two, and then once again I go to the A7 major suspended even, on it. And on the keyboard it sounded great, but on guitar it sounded killer, So I want to say that the song was written around that riff more so than lyrics. The eternal question is what comes first, the music or the lyrics. And usually with mine, they're kind of hitting the runway at the same time. I kind of am coming up with a concept, but it also has to go with what the feel of the song is. And the feel of this song was just. It had me going towards the lyrics then gravitated towards this. I can make your life better if you'll just let me inside your mind, and and it's almost like an ESP thing, but not blatantly like I'm trying to say that I'm
subliminal.
So just there's so many more things about that. But the one other thing I would say about the recording was. As I was playing it on. I had a Ibanez musician guitar that sounds kind of Strat-y, but not enough like a Strat, So I called once again our good buddy Roger. I said, Roger, can I borrow your Strat just for a day? So I played that song on a Strat, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what this song is.
This is that mirrored Strat, or is it silver? What? How is it? Shows up on the video kind of like a silvery mirrored guitar.
Love that you brought that up, but I played it on Roger's. It's a burst, but it's like a wood grain or whatever. So I played it on that. Once I played it, I got to have a Strat now.
Oh,
so I gave him back his Strat, and I toyed with it, and I decided I was going to sell a guitar on eBay. And buy that one because I was like, I didn't want to spend the money, and I don't need another guitar. But I thought I'm gonna do. So I put this one on eBay, and I waited and didn't sell. I waited and didn't sell, and then finally I was like, I just got to go get it.
Yeah.
so I bought a silver. It's a American made silver burst, and I've used it on now 2 or 3 more songs. So, but yeah, the song is really a Stratocaster song for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so then now you're talking sound. When you heard the Stratocaster, you thought, okay, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Other sounds, when people listen to music, we're hearing the thick, Les Paul sound, something like that. The sounds that are out there, how many different types of guitars now have you put into your songs?
Really and truly, I've only ever borrowed Roger's Strat to do that one song, so everything else has been mine. But I do have a gold top Les Paul that my cousin sold me for $200 way back in the day, and it's like a 1978 gold top. And
did you give him more money afterwards? Or no?
No, you're not gonna look. No. And he passed away since then. But the guitarist in his band from back in the day said, if you ever want to sell that thing, tell me first, But
Sure.
but at this point, no, I want to keep that. But I took it and had it recently reset up and everything. So I played that. My youngest son, Zane, he wanted to get into music at one time. So I said, let's go buy a guitar. So we went to, and he was pretty young at the time. I wish I could remember how old he was, maybe 10, 12 years old or something. So I took him to the guitar store and said, what do you want? You look at him, and I was sure he was going to get something that was cool looking, but it was, a junk guitar, just something that had looked like a Starburst or whatever, But he points to the wall and he picks out a Gibson SG, a red Gibson SG, and I was like, not a bad choice. So yeah, I'd like to have that in the house. So sure. So I've used that on quite a few songs of my own. He didn't take to guitar heavily, but he still dabbles with it a little bit. So, but I played so Gibson mostly. Yeah. And then I've got a 12-string acoustic that I play a lot. It's a what's Gibson's lower brand? Epiphone. It's Epiphone. Okay. And then I've got an Alvarez 6-string acoustic that I play. I think that's it. Yeah. So and then the Ibanez Musician. There's a really interesting guitar. It's through the body wood. The neck's not separate. Now,
do you experiment with any tunings, or are you just straight E tuning?
Yeah, straight E tuning. I've done several songs with take the E and drop it down to D for a song that's in D. I've done that on quite a few songs. I don't. I've done the tuning just to see how it works, but I don't think I've written one song with that. But
that's something that people are starting to get into. I don't know. I mean, especially Jimmy Page made DADGAD tuning.
Yep, DADGAD.
So, have you ever tried anything like that? As far as a different, like people may tune to C or people may tune to drop D, but you never tried a DADGAD or never tried what they call country tuning or anything like that. Then
not too much. The one instrument I bought that I still haven't ventured into too deeply is I bought a lap steel guitar. And to do that, the main tuning for that to get that Hawaiian sound is it's a C tuning, C, E, G. I forget what all of them are. So I set it up to that, and then someone said, if you want to play the Pink Floyd, what's the one? Anyhow, Pink Floyd songs, it's got the steel guitars. That's a different tuning, and I was like, this is cool, So I've dabbled with them, but from a songwriting standpoint, haven't gone there yet. The one I love is Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon. He kind of sets it up so that he's just playing open strings and he just does a bar up
one at a time.
Yeah, I think it's Time for Me to Fly.
Yeah, he plays. I think that's a D, just a D open.
Yep.
Where we're just playing a D all the time.
Yep.
Right. Well, because there's so many different aspects of playing where I've seen people play different tunings and also capo. So I wanted to ask you about that. Do you do any capo playing? Do you do anything like that to where maybe a song that you're writing might be a little bit low, maybe for what you do? So you move a capo up. I mean, have you experimented with any capo playing?
I use capo so rarely. The irony is that you bring that up. Just this past weekend I did a song that's in F, and I'm trying to put some acoustic guitar to it. And F bar chord on an acoustic is just a little bit tough. So I thought, let's play it in E and just put the capo there. And it just with a 12-string, it's not all the strings stay in tune with it. So I don't like that. I do love how the feel of like this the D chord and the A chord. You just know these open chords.
Right.
When you take them up and you capo it up here and play that same chord pattern, it's a whole new song. It's a whole new sound. It doesn't sound. Right. I feel like everyone, if you play a song with a D and a D suspended, everyone's like, they know that sound because they've heard it in Crazy Little Thing Called Love, every other song, But you take it up here and it's like, this is interesting. I've never heard anybody play that chord, where it's just a D, but it's moved up and now it's a F or whatever. So I love it. But the other thing too is I feel like I just never always kept it around. So for live shows, I would just typically learn the best place to play it, if that means bar
yeah, transposing it to wherever you can. Yeah.
So not a big fan of needing to use a capo, but have one and not afraid to use it.
All right, I have 2 other instruments I got to ask you about.
Fire away.
First of all is the mandolin.
Yeah.
What have you done with the mandolin, if any?
The main thing I did with two things I'd say I did with mandolin. It's just absolutely one of my favorite songs. Well, Styx is really one of my favorite bands, Chicago.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, Styx, man. That matter of fact, I got to the point where I was in a Styx group chat where I knew where Tommy Shaw was that weekend, and what his dog was doing, and or all the fights in between or whatever. But anyhow, so one of their songs is "Boat on the River."
Yeah.
And it's such a mandolin-based thing. So learning that was one of the first things I really wanted to do. And it's pretty simple, overall to play it. And I learned a little solo on it. So that's one of the main things I loved about mandolin. I played in Nashville. I had a house gig with a singer named Donna Bradford. And we played at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, which is a very famous little dive bar where all the Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, that's where they would go when they were playing the Ryman Auditorium, but they'd sneak out the back during the breaks and go get a drink over at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. But anyhow, it's right on the strip there. And so we had a fiddle player / mandolin player / keyboard player in the band, and he sold me my first mandolin, and so it's still the one I have today. And so he played it in a lot of country stuff, and it just sounds great for country. I did one of my originals was a Mexican song called Mr. Bar Owner, and it's about someone who, but it had a real Mexican flair to it, Mexican cantina sound.
Sure.
And the mandolin just played so perfectly into it. But yeah, that's
that instrument's also a little strange on the tuning. 8 strings, octave strings. It's different tuning than obviously a 6-string guitar, but
but it's upside down.
Yeah, upside down, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the thing, right? And a lot of single notes. There's there's 2-finger chord notes, things like that. That to me was a little bit difficult, and I of course never got it. But when I'm trying to play it, Styx comes to mind, but a lot of Led Zeppelin that I did comes to mind.
Heart.
And Heart, yeah. So you try to play these little notes, and when you're a bass player and you have thick, heavy fingers like I do, trying to play a neck that's this big, it's hard it doesn't work out very well. But the sound is phenomenal. Yeah. Love the sound of that. Love to watch people play the mandolin. So I figured you got into that one.
Yeah.
But this last instrument I want to ask you about, I'm going to guess that you never got involved in it. And I apologize then to your wife now if I get you involved in it. But I think you know what I'm talking about. The instrument is the Chapman stick. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
no, I've never played one.
Oh, good. Okay. So there is one that you haven't played.
Yeah.
And so then I do apologize to your wife because there are a couple of groups out there who use a Chapman stick. And when John Paul Jones went out on his own, he had a guitar player where they would play, and it was all instrumental, so there's no vocals, but played a Chapman stick.
Yeah.
And I have never heard anything like that before. So I wanted to get kind of your take. Have you heard one? Have you seen one? Do you know what they are? And any interest in even figuring out what that is?
Well, when you invite me back next year, I'll tell you how it went. I've heard
you are.
I do need to get one. I think they're pretty expensive. That's the one thing.
Probably.
Because I think there's a lot to them. I saw a concert this last year where the bass player was playing. I think it's Howard Jones, if I remember correctly. He was playing, and he's the guy from Kajagoogoo, if I remember correctly. So anyhow, so I watched him playing it live, and it was pretty incredible to see what I was doing with it. But that's one that I just it hasn't been on my radar. But my wife's gonna be a little upset with you, so you got some splaining to do.
There you go. But I'd love to see the video.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. Thank you for joining our Living in the Limelight podcast with your host, Anton Scholl. Please feel free to comment, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And also add us to your playlist on your favorite streaming sites. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again next week.